During the latter half of a 10-mile training walk the other night, I removed my hiking sandals and took the streets barefoot. I do this to build up my feet because I think it helps prevent blisters later when I'm wearing shoes. True or not, it's my practice. But on this particular night, I was out later than expected and found myself without a headlamp walking the occasionally lit city back streets. Gravel, sticks, and acorn shells littered the asphalt. Nevertheless, I sucked it up, one foot in front of the other. I told myself that every jagged acorn I stepped on left that part of my foot stronger for the future. But my God, it hurt. And that pain brought me back to one of my all-time favorite films, Lawrence of Arabia. In particular, I was reminded of the scene in which Lieutenant Lawrence is in the map room with a few enlisted blokes. Lawrence, played by the impeccable Peter O'Toole, demonstrates to the soldiers and to the film's audience that he is a man with a calling beyond that of mere mortals, as it were.
You do that once too often. It's only flesh and blood.
Michael George Hartley, you're a philosopher.
After Lawrence snuffs out a match with his bare fingers, one of the men, William Potter, tries the same trick.
Oh! It damn well hurts.
Certainly it hurts.
Well, what's the trick then?
The trick, William Potter, is not minding that it hurts.
With this one memorable quote, the tone is set for the remainder of the film's 3-hour, 42-minute runtime, where Lawrence crawls around the desert deprived of water and creature comforts. In a wandering solo strategy session, Lawrence isolates for a night and a day, driving himself to near madness, determining how best to take the seaport of Aqaba. From the land, he says. O'Toole once again delivers mental anguish in performative genius. He endures the ordeal of crossing the 150 uncrossable miles of the Nefu Desert on camelback, turning around against all odds to save a man fallen from his camel to prove that nothing is written. A short time later, however, in a bit of Hollywoodization, in order to quell a tribal dispute, Lawrence calls upon himself to execute a murderer, the very man he saved in the desert. This scene, though fictionalized, is painful to watch as we imagine the real-life Lawrence's internal struggle. Before the end, Lawrence watches his young guide die slowly and is even tortured by the Turkish army. But always through the mental, emotional, and physical torment, we're asked to remember that opening scene.
The trick, William Potter, is not minding that it hurts.
This mantra goes unstated for the rest of the film, but it is otherwise spoken across Peter O'Toole's face as his character bears hardships beyond what most people will ever experience. Now, it may sound trite to compare T.E. Lawrence's exploits in the Great War's Middle Eastern campaign with walking on acorns in the dark, but we don't all live the exceptional lives of, and I'm using big-time air quotes here, war heroes. Hear me out, though. Once upon a time, I lived a different life. Off and on for 16 years, I lived in the state of Alaska. And in Alaska, I hiked, camped, climbed, biked, and I ran. I ran in the city with the sane people, and I ran in the mountains with the other kind. And like all adventure seekers in the last frontier, I took my lumps. Even when rocks weren't gouging away at my flesh, the punishment I put my body through, climbing mountains or racing bikes, was often excruciating. But having been a fan of Lawrence of Arabia since I was a teenager, and having seen the film dozens of times, I was intimately familiar with the film's most famous one-liner. I adopted it as my own. So when I was out there huffing and puffing my way to the summit, or grinding out 30-mile walks across Anchorage, or jockeying for race position on my mountain bike, or running the hilliest marathon ever, I told myself over and over, the trick, Eric Kirschner, is not minding that it hurts. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes it did not. But I learned that when I'm out there putting everything I have into the world, it hurts. It hurts a lot sometimes. Athletes often talk about digging down deep after they've given what they think is their 100% max effort for that proverbial 10% extra. We've heard it so much that giving 110% is probably one of the top 5 cliches of all time. The unnamed Navy SEAL in Jesse Eitzler's book, Living with a SEAL, expresses this maxim more meaningfully. He says, when you think you're done, you're only at 40% of what your body is capable of doing. That's just the limit that we put on ourselves. That might sound like bullshit, but if you ever hit a wall at mile 13 of a marathon and still manage to finish, or if your legs turn to jelly halfway up a mountain and still manage to summit and return safely to your car, or if you ever even just face down final weeks at any university, you have first-hand understanding that we can do more than we think we can. We are all capable of so much more than we think. One of the most important life lessons I have learned the hard way is that quitting when shit just gets hard, or giving up when I'm so tired I want to collapse and sleep in the gutter, I never finish anything big. But that if I push myself through the mental barriers, the ones I erected for myself in the first place, of course, I will surprise myself every time. And the rewards are phenomenal. They don't call it mountaintop experience for nothing. And so, what's the point of all of this? In the second act of Lawrence of Arabia, Dryden, one of General Allenby's advisors, sums up completely the inevitable outcome of when a person decides they don't mind the pain.
What I'm trying to say is I don't think I'm fit for it.
Really? What do you think, Dryden? Before he did it, sir, I'd have said it couldn't be done. Dryden?
I've told myself thousands of times I can't walk across America. I tell myself I'm too old, I'm too fat. And in addition to a rucksack and 4 days worth of water, I also carry the weight of my mental illness, something I'll no doubt go into more depth in future videos. I simply tell myself that it can't be done, despite mounds of evidence that it's humanly possible. I mean, every year, new books, documentaries, and YouTube channels are founded with this very adventure at their core. Crossing America. This is something people do. All this is to say that while none of my life's adventures have exactly prepared me for a walk across America, I've not been numb to the lessons my adventures have taught me. The reward for bearing physical pain and mental, emotional anguish in pursuit of a specific goal is often achieving that goal. And despite all the pain and discomfort endured along the way, it's almost never my body holding me back. It's my brain. It's the narrative of negativity that lives rent-free in my spirit. But to revise that narrative, to assure myself that I'm capable of exceptional things, the trick, Eric Kirshner, is not minding that it hurts. That's always given me the most satisfying mountaintop experiences. And thinking my way out of physical limitations is what's going to get me across America. Well, it's one trick of many. More to come.